Hi YouTube subscribers, hi YouTube world. I'm making a follow-up to my last video about the Nclex. There was a couple of important things that I forgot to say, as always. So if you watched the last video, this video might be just as helpful as that. And I'm just talking about what I did to help me pass the Nclex. So first and foremost, what I forgot to say and should have said in the last video is by now you should have a good understanding of what your study style is, and you should know what works best for you. So if you're listening to my last video and you're thinking, well, I'm not a visual learner, then that's okay. Then don't do what I did necessarily. Like if you're an auditory learner, then you might need to listen to old lectures or listen to auditory tapes or videos online. Do what works for you. If you need to study with a group of people, then do that. If you need to go to the library and have discipline, do that. Also, I am the type of learner who needs to understand the big picture in order to grasp the smaller details. So that's why I focused a lot on studying content versus doing a million questions, because I need to understand like the pathophysiology, and I need to understand like patterns in order to start understanding details. So I focused more on content first, and then later I went back and did details, understanding the differences between certain diseases that had always confused me. But when I was able to understand the big picture, it was easier for me to understand, oh, these are completely different in this sense. So that's what I had to do. But you might be the type of learner that needs to know the details first, like do a million questions, and then go back to content. So my main message is, please don't take what I'm saying as you have to study the way I'm saying. You should know by now, if you pass through nursing school, what you need to do in order to study for the Nclex based on what worked for you in nursing school. Another couple things that I forgot to mention that I used a ton is I used Pinterest, and I have a board on my Pinterest that I use just for nursing, that gives me visuals. Again, because I'm a visual learner, I need a lot of pictures to help me remember like symptoms of different diseases, pictures of what different procedures look like, the steps to dialysis, that sort of thing. So I did a whole board on that. I will try to link my Pinterest down below, but it should be under Kim Delk Pinterest. I think if you Google that, it should come up. I'm not sure though. But anyway, so I did Pinterest a ton. I pinned like almost 1,000 things. Am I gonna remember every single thing? No, but for the main part, it helped me remember things that I'd forgotten, or later on I could go back if I'm like reviewing a question or something and I'm like, I don't remember. I could just type into my Pinterest the topic and boom, it pops up, and then I remember everything based on the picture. So I used that a lot. Another internet tool that I used is the RN Mastery app. I had been using that in nursing school as well, just to understand, like, select all the apply questions, to get better with that. When I did maternity, I did a lot of maternity questions to help me. So anyway, to study for the Nclex, I did a lot of, like, the lab value questions that I never got to in nursing school, and that helped me a lot. As far as labs go, again, don't focus on like you want to have an idea of this is within normal range, this is way out of normal, but don't get hung up on this book says bicarbonate has to be 21 to 26, and this book says it has to be 22 to 28. Don't worry about that, because in the real world you are going to see different lab values, like depending on what hospital you work at, they're going to use different things. So don't worry about like little nuances. Just know, oh, this lab value is way off. Like for instance, somebody's creatinine is at a level 4. You need to know, like, oh, that's way that's the most concerning. So you should have an idea of that's within normal range, or whoa, this lab value is really weird. This is something I need to call the doctor about. Okay, and then other things that I didn't use but other people said was helpful for them is Hearst. I did use that in nursing school. We had them come and they gave us like sample questions that we could do, so I did them, and I did think that it was a good program and everything, but again, it cost like extra money and I didn't feel like doing it. But it is good from what I've heard and from the practice that we did do in nursing school. And again, Kaplan's really good. I did the Nclex book for Kaplan, but Kaplan also does programs that you can buy as well. And yeah, and I know people who've sweared by each one, saying, oh, I failed, I had to retake it, but then I did Hearst, or I did the Kaplan program, or I did UWorld, and then I was able to pass. So look into those if you think you're gonna fail because you're like, I skated by nursing school, or if you did fail, I would look into those options, because a lot of people say that like helped them. And Hearst also, I think they have like a money back guarantee or something if you don't pass. Oh, and here's another thing to remember when you're taking the Nclex, as far as like you want to be staying positive, telling yourself you can do it, you'll pass this, you pass nursing school, you know, along those same lines. Something else to remember that's important is don't get discouraged, especially for me, it was kind of discouraging. Some of the questions were so hard that I was like, I've never heard of this certain disease syndrome. We never talked about this certain medication. Don't get hung up on that, because one, like I said in the last video, it might be a pilot question. Number two, if you're getting really hard questions, that can be a good sign, actually, that you're doing well, because the computer knows if you're doing good or bad, and it will alter the questions based on your response. So if you are doing good, the questions are just going to keep getting harder. So don't get discouraged by that. That doesn't mean that you don't know your material. It might mean that you're actually doing really well. So I kept that in mind as I was doing the test, and that helped me stay positive. Okay, and then I couldn't remember in my last video what that YouTube channel was that I think is super helpful. It's called Registered Nurse RN. I had to look that up so that I could tell you guys. And then the book that I used along with Kaplan that I'd mentioned in my last video that I couldn't remember the title of is called Nclex Essentials. It's called Nclex Essentials, Med Surge, Everything You Need to Know to Demolish Med Surge. And it actually says on the cover, like, Nclex doesn't have to be so damn hard. So if you want to Google search it, it's on Amazon as well as that Kaplan book I talked to you about. That Nclex Essentials book is like $12 on Amazon. The Kaplan book can be anywhere from like $40 to $20, depending where you get it from on Amazon. And then lastly, one thing I did want to say as well is if you do wind up failing the Nclex, just remember there isn't a cap on how many times you can take it. So if this is something you really have wanted to do for a long time, you've worked really hard for, and you really want this in your heart, don't get discouraged. I when I did clinicals, I worked with a few nurses who were like, yeah, I failed a semester, or I had to take the Nclex 3 times, but I've been a nurse now for so many years, and you move on. So don't think it's the end-all be-all if you fail. It might mean that you have to take it again. Well, I mean, it does mean you're going to have to take it again if you want to pursue nursing. Or it might mean maybe you want to look into something else if you're like, you know what, I didn't really like clinicals, and I didn't like studying in school, and I just don't think this is a good fit for me. Then that's a possibility too. You know, don't take it as the end-all be-all. Don't beat yourself up too much. And you can always retake it. I mean, it is an expensive test, but if this is what you really want to do, don't get discouraged, because there's several nurses I know who had to take it several times. It is a very hard test. It doesn't mean you're going to be a good nurse or a bad nurse. Some people just aren't good test takers, and so don't get so discouraged, please, if that happened to you. Okay. Well, anyway, guys, I think I covered everything that I wanted to now, finally. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have questions, comments, please leave them below. I get back very fast. Okay. Anyway, guys, stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe. Okay, bye.